It's June 2024 and this is the Bureau Asia podcast. Let's get into it. Hey there, how you doing? I'm Matt Cowan and you're listening to the Bureau Asia podcast, the podcast that aims to bring you a little bit of everything from history and food to brews and news and everything in between, hopefully with a few laughs, and which may just be the best way to keep up with what's happening in Vietnam without even being in Vietnam. Or, if you're here already, without even leaving your home, unless you have to, say, grab your washing that's blown off the balcony. Hey, I hope you're well wherever you're listening in from. Let me know where you are by commenting on Facebook or wherever you listen to this. As always, I'm here in Ho Chi Minh City and thankfully not up north at the moment, where they've had torrential rains, especially up in the far northern province of Ha Giang or Ha Giang, where at least 400 tourists were stranded and needed evacuating this week. Local communities have also been devastated due to the flooding, according to VN Express last Tuesday. And according to Hanoi's weather dude, northern Vietnam has already had above average rainfall this summer. This was confirmed by a report on Vietnam.net, which stated that the floods are the most severe in 3 decades and reported that rainfall ranged from 100 to 400 millimetres over just 2 days. That's over 15 inches of rain in 48 hours. Ha Giang is approximately 280 kilometres northwest of Hanoi and just 25 kilometres or so from the Chinese border, so it's right up there at the top. It's a mountainous province and famous for the Ha Giang Loop, a snaking and quite treacherous road that passes rippling rice terraces and where mountain passes are cut out of steep cliff faces and look over rivers and valleys and limestone pinnacles. It's really beautiful, making it extremely popular for motorcycle tours, especially among backpackers, hence the number of tourists that have been stranded and evacuated. My thoughts go out to the friends and families of locals up there who have lost loved ones this week. I believe there have been at least 3 people who have passed away as a result. I haven't checked as of today, but there may have been more. So if you have plans in place to travel up there, be sure to check local weather reports. I believe more rain is forecast and, like Vietnam pretty much all over, weather conditions can change quickly. And I guess it's also a timely reminder to do your research if planning a trip up there. Check the best times of year to visit. And one place to start your research might be vietnamcoracle.com. I'll leave a link in the show notes. Vietnam Coracle is updated regularly and Tom, the man behind Coracle, seems to be always on the road and he's driven through every province over the years. So if anyone knows about conditions, it's likely to be him. Other news in Ho Chi Minh City this week that sparked online debate was the arrest of a 28-year-old Kiwi, a New Zealander, for tagging the roller door of a house in District 1 and presumably others in the early hours of Saturday morning last week. Now, tagging is a form of graffiti where, in this case, vandals spray paint their tag or signature, if you like, on public and private property. I guess it's kind of like how dogs might mark their territory, for want of a better expression. But herein lies the debate. Is graffiti art or is it vandalism? This one always seems to spark robust debate, and this case has been no different. Not only do lines get painted, but battle lines get drawn, with no one really sitting on the fence when this topic rolls around. Netizens, as they often call them here, are always willing to spray their opinions all over the place, sometimes with very colourful language, and as I said, this particular case got people going too. Comments online range from people wanting him fined, followed by deportation, to defending him as an artist, although it seems the general consensus was that tagging is ugly and not art, and that graffiti in a more traditional sense, that is unsolicited murals, if I can call them that, should be treated as art because it can beautify otherwise ugly buildings and neighbourhoods. What do you think? Let me know on Spotify, YouTube, Facebook and Insta at the Bureau Asia. Vent your spleen and don't forget to tell me how you feel about foreigners coming to Vietnam and spray painting walls and roller doors in the inner city. Is it art or not? and does it bug you? Speaking of bugging you, I hope I'm not. This segment should interest you, especially if you live or have lived overseas, and more specifically, if you live in Vietnam or maybe planning on living here. But please don't swipe away if any of that doesn't apply to you, because if you're just interested in life in Vietnam, which I suspect you are by listening to this, or you have some kind of connection to Vietnam, perhaps you still have family here, then I think you'll get a kick out of this as well. I'm calling this segment What Bugs Me About Vietnam. Now, let me explain a bit more before you crucify me, and let me tell you why I'm doing this segment. Now, speaking from my experience living in Vietnam, for the most part, I've loved it, although I'm kind of amazed sometimes I'm still actually here. Initially, I signed a 2-year contract with a university to teach here, thinking there would be a good chance I'd move on after that. But as is fairly common here with foreigners or expats or whatever you want to call us, 2 years rolled into 4, 4 rolled into 6, 6 into 8, and now suddenly I've been here for 14 years and married to a Filipina. Funny how things work out. But it hasn't been without its challenges. Saigon can be quite a challenging place to live, for me at least, given that Australian and Vietnamese cultures are vastly different. Like, did you know that if someone says they'll meet you in 5 minutes, Nam Phuc in Vietnamese, it could mean 30 minutes, an hour, a day, or they may not even come at all. Okay, that's a bit extreme, but I think you get the gist. Another good example might be weddings. Did you know you shouldn't ever turn up early on time to a wedding? Yeah, I did that. The start time on the wedding invitation is more like the time you should book your Grab taxi to take you to the venue. Why that is, I have no idea. I've never bothered to ask. I really should ask. I should ask my guest if I think of it, who's coming up pretty soon. And then there's the Nhol culture that dictates the sharing of food and drinks on a night out. In a peanut shell, it means you never drink alone. You should always do it with a friend or friends or colleagues. But even more than that, you should never take a sip without inviting others to take a sip with you, which leads to constant cheersing or yoing, as they call it here, and plenty of beers down the hatch as a result. In addition to that, food. There must always be food accompanying the beers. If you know, you know. If you don't know, you've never been to Vietnam. Now, on the flip side, I can't think of too many things off the top of my head right now that are vastly similar culture-wise between, say, Aussies and Vietnamese, except maybe that generally speaking, we love a beer and don't take ourselves too seriously. I think that's fair to say. Oh, just on drinking culture, this might be a useful tip for anyone planning on doing business here. Typically, the Vietnamese like to break the ice by taking, literally as well, by the tables at the One Yows. They like to break the ice by taking you out for drinks first, or at least taking you out for drinks early in the piece before getting down to business. Whereas Aussies are more accustomed to celebrating after the deal is done. I think we only like to drink with people we like, whereas the Vietnamese will drink with you to see if they like you, if that makes sense. It makes Aussies sound a bit prudish, doesn't it? Actually, I'd be curious to know how Aussies with Vietnamese heritage negotiate that. Get in touch. And if you can come up with any other cultural similarities between Western and Vietnamese cultures, let me know at the Bureau Asia. So back to the topic of this segment. What did I want to say? Okay. So when people say to me, you must love it here, I usually reply with, well, it's just life for me where I happen to have made a home. It's a tricky one to answer. It's kind of like, where do I start when people ask me questions like that? There are so many things to consider. And I think I've forgotten way more than I can remember, if that makes sense. And depending on who's asking, I really don't want to offend anyone. So I usually just say, I really enjoy it. Anyway, during my time living here, there have been good and bad days, of course. That's life. But definitely many more good than bad. And then There are those random days when you get out of bed in the morning and they just seem to bug you for no reason. It might be the seemingly endless number of times you get cut off in traffic on the way to work, or you've arrived at a government office at 11:29 a.m, delayed because of that traffic, only to have the staff tell you to come back at 1 p.m. Oh man, I don't know how many times that's happened to me. And let's not even talk about dealing with the banks. So in this segment, I'm going to come clean on a few things that bug me about Vietnam. I know I might come across as a sucker for punishment, but I am a little bit smarter than you think because I've invited my good friend Nam along to join me to deflect some of the trolling I may get from doing this and to be my security blanket of sorts, as it were. Because for everything that I mention that bugs me about Vietnam, he's going to be on hand to counter and tell me what bugs him about foreigners in Vietnam. As I mentioned, Nam is a good friend of mine. We've known each other for years now. And in fact, we now live in the same apartment complex here in Saigon. Nam is a photographer first and foremost, with over 15 years experience in the game, shooting stuff for editorial and commercial pieces and even weddings. But he also calls himself a fashion enthusiast, having at one time run a successful streetwear clothing brand with another one, I believe, in the pipeline. So look out for that. And in addition to that, he's also the chief editor of his own men's fashion and lifestyle publication called The Highball Vietnam. He's also not a bad cook too. Nam, welcome, buddy. Thanks for either being brave or stupid for joining me in this segment and also for being my safety blanket.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me.
Good
just happy to be here and, having a fun chit chat with you.
Awesome. Well, let's hope it's fun.
Yeah.
Hopefully we don't, hopefully we don't come to fisticuffs over our cultural differences.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm calling this segment, What Bugs Me About Vietnam. Now, I think that's what I might put on the thumbnail anyway. Now, before the trolls listening kick off and start labeling me as a miserable, old, entitled white guy who should just go home, I want to stress that we're doing this somewhat with our tongues lodged firmly in our cheeks. We aim not to offend anybody, but we understand that some people may get butthurt over some of the things we're about to say, especially in this day and age. But hey, we just want to keep things honest on this channel. So if you do have anything to say about us after hearing this, good or otherwise, do so at the Bureau Asia on social media and be kind, at least to me anyway. Okay, so Nam, I'm going to kick things off.
Sure.
Okay,
yep.
All right. So the first thing that bugs me about Vietnam is people cutting in line. So it could be at the bank or it could be when I'm paying a bill or something like that. It also happens in traffic as well. People cut in front and they don't even look back. They don't even seem to care that I'm there. What is that?
Yeah, it happens to me all the time too. And I mean, like I always say, common sense is a luxury here in Vietnam. It's part of the way Vietnamese people would educate their kids, right? I mean, like they educate their kids about all these big things about how to treat people nicely, about how to be a good person to the society, but then they forgot about all these, common sense, wise behaviors.
So is that, as soon as people walk out of the front door at home, they tend to forget these sort of things?
Or they were not aware of it. I would say they were not aware of it. They do it in a very natural way because they didn't think about it.
Okay.
Yeah, it happens a lot to me, even older people. They cut the line common. Or, you keep the door open for them and then they don't say thanks. You hold the elevator door for them and then they walk in and then they never say thanks.
Or the classic where your elevator comes to the floor that you're getting to, the door opens and people walk in.
People wouldn't walk out to give you some space. It happens all the time. So it's more like I would look at it like how you behave to contribute to the society that are moving, that kind of thing, and people don't think about it that way. They think more about themselves.
So just a moment ago, you said that families at home teach their kids how to behave, but presumably when they leave, they kind of forget those sorts of things, or don't they teach?
I would put it this way. At home, parents tend to educate kids how to behave toward older people, to be nice, to be respectful. but they don't tend to put the kids into the context of the greater society way,
right.
like where you say like, you know what, sometimes you are not that special. Sometimes you should give way. Sometimes you should put yourself aside or smaller than the big society because, you know, the society needs to move. The society needs to, you know, people need to move as well. So maybe, you know, take yourself as a small piece of this puzzle and be a part of it rather than putting yourself first.
It's very interesting though, because the Vietnamese from a foreigner's perspective, I think you could ask just about any foreigner in Vietnam or someone who's been here, anyone who's been here, they will say that the Vietnamese are very good at coming together when it's needed.
Only when it's needed. Right? On a normal Monday,
like
no.
Football.
Yeah. And you know, then that's like the spiritual side of Vietnamese people where, you know, they feel that they need to come together and work together, be a big group to achieve a greater cause.
In the name of culture or something like that.
But on a daily basis, I come first. You know, on a daily basis, I don't give way. That kind of spirit, I really feel it, especially in traffic. Yeah. People don't give way. Yeah. People don't step back a bit and give space to other people so they can make their way smoother, and then the rest of the crowd can move smoother. They put themselves first. They try to cut line, and that's kind of a mentality. It really annoys me too.
So what's your advice for me when I get frustrated at those sorts of things that happen?
I got frustrated every day about it too, but at the same time knowing it, you know, knowing the cause of it. I don't know, just bear with it, I guess. Just
let it go.
You can't really change people. You know, that's too many people to change.
All right, cool.
Yeah.
Interesting one. Yeah, that's right. Actually, I say that to Mel a lot.
Yeah.
You know, if she gets frustrated, you know, we both get frustrated. Everyone gets frustrated.
Yeah.
But I'm like, Mel, one person can't change a whole culture, and there's 100 million people living here.
I mean, this is where Stoicism comes in handy. You know, it's not what happened. It's the way you look at it, I guess. So I've been reading the book, so I was like, okay, well.
And try and chill.
Yeah.
Okay, your turn.
Well, one of the things that really bugs me is the fact that, you know, I go downtown a lot. You know, I go downtown, see my friend, having coffee or work. And every time I come by these, you know, popular tourist spot, you know, like the Reunification Palace, there's always some white guy walking around topless, man. I mean, okay, it's hot.
Always.
Almost always, yeah. But I mean, okay, I understand. It's really hot here in Vietnam, you know. But at the same time, maybe having some sort of sense of respect.
Yep.
You know,
especially
you're not
at that place.
Yeah, and you are not on a beach city. Okay, if it is in Da Nang or Nha Trang or Vũng Tàu, then it makes sense. But you are downtown. You are on a very, pretty much the face of the city. And you are walking around topless, you know. So
I've got to say, I have noticed it a lot lately when I've been driving around town.
Because of the heat, I guess, yeah.
Yeah, and it's kind of like maybe Bali starting to come to Ho Chi Minh City sometimes. It's, you know, you would imagine that Hoi An may in the future develop into a kind of Bali-style location because it's a beachy kind of area.
Yeah.
But you're right. To see white guys, as you said, walking around with no shirt in the middle of the city.
Yeah, I don't feel like there's a sense of respect here, to be honest. I mean, like you come to a country and it's Asia, you know, you got all these women and with all this tradition around, you know it. You know, it's not Miami. It's not, I don't know, it's not Ibiza whatsoever, you know.
But in defense of the white guys, we do see a lot of ladies, for example, getting around in very short skirts and high heels. So what about that?
Oh, that's kind of a fashion thing, isn't it? I mean, like, there's nothing disrespect about it, I guess. It's the right to wear whatever you want. But, you know, it's not about not wearing anything on top. So.
All right.
Yeah, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, good one. All right. Yeah. My next one is it's about speaking Vietnamese. And in one breath, local people will say, hey, you know, how long have you been living in Vietnam? And I'll tell them and they say, oh, so your Vietnamese must be good. And I'm like, no, not really. And then they say, well, you should really be able to speak Vietnamese. So then the next time I make an effort to speak Vietnamese and they reply in English. Or I go into a shop or a restaurant, you know, and I break out my new Vietnamese phrase only to get an English reply back.
Yeah.
And to be honest, a lot of the time the English reply isn't that good. It might be about my standard of Vietnamese.
Yeah,
so what's with that? Like,
I think it's a natural reaction of the brain. Because like when you see a white person, then you tend your brain kind of switch to English mode.
Okay.
I mean, like it happens between me and you quite a few times too. You know, like I want to speak Vietnamese to you, but for some reason I find it faster and easier for me to get the information over in English. Yeah. So,
but I think that's a little bit different. Our relationship is built on English. It was founded on English. That was our first language of communication.
Yeah, so same to these people. They saw a foreign person. They were like, okay, better speak English.
Yeah.
Why would I try to shoot some Vietnamese? Then I have to repeat the same thing in English. Right? So I think it's a very natural thing. Like that people don't do it on purpose. You know, they do it as a natural reaction.
Yeah. And to be honest, there aren't a lot of foreigners around who speak Vietnamese anyway. So I guess that's reasonable. But, you know, it ticks me off a bit because as you know, I'm trying to improve my Vietnamese, and then I'll kick off the conversation or whatever, and then it just gets shot down with an English reply, you know. It happened to me the other day.
Yeah.
Anyway, I guess I've just got to get better. All right, you're the next one. What's your number 2?
Benton Market.
Oh, yeah? Okay.
Yeah, I think. I mean, like, as a local, I don't really go there. And I can see the whole place is very targeted toward, you know, ripping off tourists and give them a very strange experience about the Vietnamese market. So, I mean, like, I was, as a Vietnamese, you know, welcoming international tourists here to my city. Like, I would love them to have an actual more authentic experience in terms of, you know, going to the market and see what's going on and not getting ripped off and, you know, like, you know, getting an idea of how things work here. But the Benton markets, like, I mean, like, people come there because it's there, it's downtown, it's big, it's iconic.
Yeah, you can't miss it.
Yeah, you can't really miss it. It's so easy to get to.
Yep.
But at the same time, the people who manage and who runs it, like, really ruin the, you know, the experience, you know, like ripping off people and then all these knockoff of products and stuff like that. So the experience is rather weird to me.
Yeah.
While you can put some extra effort, like maybe taking a Grab by 10 minutes away over to District 4, and then you got an authentic market already.
Oh, that's right. Those
so
markets
I mean, like, I was hoping people would put some extra effort in traveling to get the authentic experience.
What percentage would you say Benton Market is in terms of being authentic? Is it sort of 50% authentic of a Vietnamese
like
market?
I said, I can't remember the last time I was inside. Right. But to be honest, I talked to a few friends and they say Benton Market is actually 20% or 30% authentic, especially the fresh produce area at the back where they sell fish and, you know, vegetables.
It's actually
and flowers.
quite small too.
Yeah, it's the percentage is like way smaller than the main part, right?
Yeah.
But that's where actual local people who live in District 1 go there daily to get their food.
Oh, they still do?
But way more expensive than the other markets because they got the best quality produce because people who live in District 1 can't afford it.
So the produce is actually of a high quality. It's not just because the rent's higher?
No, maybe because the standard is higher there as well. But again, the surface of the area only cover 20% or 10% of the market's area, right?
In Benton Market's defense, their food court, the food area, they've done it up. Oh. And it's really good. It's quite good.
There you go. So
prices are a bit high, probably, but, you know, I think for the tourist experience, it's pretty good. And the market, you got to be honest, it's a lot cleaner than you know, say the district, you know, Som Jiu market, for example. But yeah, those markets aren't too far away and they're really authentic. Yeah. I've actually got a short video on that.
Yeah, Authentic Market near the Pink Church. You know, that one is awesome too.
It's very cool.
Yeah.
All right, my turn again. I think my last one is spitting and pissing in public.
Yeah.
You know, like before you were talking about I think it was my first point, you were saying that families will teach their kids how to behave. And, you know, there's social norms around how you should behave in public and stuff like that. But then suddenly it all seems to go out the window and people spit right near you or, you know, I mean, the taxi drivers are a good example. These days they'll piss anywhere.
Yeah.
What is that?
I mean, so back to the mentality problem here. I think Vietnamese people, they got this mentality thing called he's doing wrong. Why should I do right? You know, that thing? Like, okay, he's doing wrong, so I'm allowed to do wrong too. Why should I try to be the right right person? Why should I try to behave right when everyone seems to doing wrong?
It's kind of like the theory that goes with littering, like throwing rubbish away.
Yeah.
You know, I was speaking to an RMIT lecturer last year about why is Vietnam so trashed? Why is there so much rubbish around? And he's like, well, you know, human nature, I suppose it is, dictates that if you see a lot of trash lying around, you'll add to the pile as well. So you think it's something like that, where if you see someone spitting, other people will just follow suit?
I think, let's split it here. Like for the spitting part, I think Vietnam is very, you know, polluted in terms of air quality, right? So, you know, a lot of people don't wear masks nowadays. So like you can get like coughing and dirt into your nose and your nasal area really quickly. So you need to spit out, and you are riding. So people just do it out of, you know, natural behavior, right?
But they do it on the footpath right near your feet.
Yeah. And then pissing in public, I think like because Vietnamese street in the city offer so few public toilets.
Okay.
So what people are supposed to do, you know, and then they are on, you know, Grab driver or working people, they are on the street all day. They cannot walk into a shopping center and go to the toilet.
Yeah,
you know, that they would got stopped.
Yeah.
So I mean, like in Bangkok or in other country, it's very easy to have access to a public toilet some sort. But in Vietnam, very few.
Yeah, this made the news last year.
Yeah.
But, you know how there's always those lists going around, the best city to find this, the best city, this, that and the other.
Yeah.
And Ho Chi Minh City ranked like number 1 or 2 or something in the world for...
Not enough toilets?
Yeah, not enough toilets, and they're dirty if they have them.
Yeah, I mean, I have that problem myself too. But, you know, when I'm downtown, I actually have to spend money for coffee to use the toilet.
Yep.
You know, so it cost me 20 or 25,000 dong to go pee.
Oh, you poor thing.
Yeah.
That's $1.
Yeah. So, you know.
All right, cool. And final one from you.
This is a deep one. I think I've been thinking about it, and as a creative person, photographer, and, you know, been in the industry for over 15 years since I'm 18, I've been through a lot of this, but a lot of foreigner people now come to Vietnam, you know, trying to set up their business in terms of media or production or, you know, whatever. And then having to work with young Vietnamese creative people. They don't have this sense of mentoring or giving other people opportunity or training them or give them values. But they tend to be more disrespectful and then
perhaps
ripping
use
off.
them as cheap labor.
Exactly, use them and then without respect, you know. And until now, even last month, there's still a lot of drama every day online about, oh, this guy ripped me off. This guy don't pay me. This guy don't respect me. So and I've been a victim myself back in when I was 19, 20 too, you know. So it happens a lot, and it's really disappointing.
Yeah, this word intern that pops up.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes I see these companies advertising for an intern, and you can just tell from the job description that it's like, okay, we need a warm body who's going to do all the sort of shitty jobs for us, and we're not really going to teach you anything.
Yeah.
You know?
And that's the thing, like, okay, like, until now, I am still trying to set up my own project, and of course I need intern or I need to work with young people to cut costs. But I'm trying to make myself very clear when I interview them or when I set up the deal with them, why you are here, what you're gonna do, and what I will try to give you in return. I was like being very clear to them because I don't want to ruin the industry. I want those young people who are new to the industry to have faith in it by, okay, I'm giving my work away for cheap or for nothing, but what I get in return is way bigger. Not just exposure. Exposure is a really lame word to me. You need exposure, you know, but you need experience, you need training, or you need knowledge.
It reminds me of that collab word as well. You know, when people say, hey, let's collab, and what I can give you is exposure. Or I can give you more followers or something like that. But I think both you and I know that when you do these collabs and people promise that you'll, you know, get exposure to a new audience or something like that, people won't do it.
To be honest, no one cares about who take the photographs. That's my experience. You know, your name show up on the screen, not gonna make sense, to be honest, you know. So yeah, I mean, like I was hoping, I mean, like, don't get me wrong, there are still some awesome foreign folks out there who are doing a lot, and, you know, but there are still some, you know, trying to rip off people.
Shysters, man. Yeah. I think we've both, as you mentioned, you've been ripped off before and so have I. Yeah, that was by a foreigner, actually.
Yeah.
That's another story. Yeah. Anyway, okay, mate, thanks heaps for joining me today. I know you're busy. Yeah. I really appreciate it.
No worries. Always.
I'm going to go and work on my intercultural communication skills now. I'm going to pull out a book. I think I've got a book here somewhere. Yeah. If you'd like to check out what Nam gets up to, check out the Highball Vietnam on social media. I'll leave links in the show notes. And, by the way, what are you up to now?
Not much, man. Friday afternoon, just take it easy. Read some books, getting some beers.
All right, awesome. Thanks heaps for your time.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, see you, mate.
Have a good one.
That was Nam with what bugs him about foreigners in Vietnam, and he joined me to listen to some of my gripes about Vietnamese culture. Thanks for being a good sport, mate. It was interesting, wasn't it, to hear a Vietnamese person reflect on their own culture and be so upfront about it. I hope you enjoyed it too. If you'd like to contribute to the conversation, be sure to comment wherever you're listening to this. YouTube seems to be the easiest place to do it at the moment. Just comment like you usually would on a video. Alternatively, you can comment in the section provided on Spotify or leave a review on Apple Podcasts if that's your platform of choice. And just on reviews, I want to give John from the US a shout out who listens regularly on Apple Podcasts. Thank you very much for your review, John. I really appreciate it. Makes a difference. And it makes me feel really good to hear such kind words. Now, he says that the best city in Vietnam is Hoi An. This is in reference to a previous episode a few weeks ago. He says that Hanoi comes in second, but watch out for the endless motorbikes. Okay, so thanks heaps for that, John. And I hope you keep listening and continue to enjoy my podcast. Okay, tip top D, let's continue. Now, lately I've been wrapping up episodes with places I've eaten at recently, and more specifically ones that I like or I've rediscovered. And it seems to have gone down pretty well, so I might as well continue with it, although I'm going to be fairly brief. I don't want to come across as an annoying know-it-all foreigner lest Nam contacts me and gives me a blast. Anyway, rather than a specific establishment this week, I'm going to recommend a street. Now, often in Vietnamese cities, we recommend streets because there sometimes tends to be a cluster of great places to eat, all sort of centered around the same area. I'm not entirely sure how this comes about, but one explanation for it might be that over time, as residents in the area notice a particular food stall or a particular style of food doing well, they might try their luck at it too. And then pretty soon there are a bunch of shops and vendors up and down the street cooking up a storm and sometimes selling the same thing. Now, one example I can think of is Ha Tân Quy Street in District 11 here in Saigon that specialises in sui cow dumplings. They're kind of like Japanese gyoza, perhaps, in a way, and you can get them in a noodle soup or get them fried. They're awesome and it's a great street, so make sure you check it out when you get the chance. Another reason for food streets popping up is that a particular ethnic group, for whatever reason, may have moved into the area or has some kind of affiliation with a neighbourhood, not unlike, say, Saigon Street in Melbourne, Australia, which is synonymous with the Italian community there. Well, here in Saigon is the well-known Ho Thi Ki Street in District 10, not all that far from Ha Tân Quy, actually. And it's here that I believe the Cambodian community fleeing Pol Pot back in the late 70s and early 80s set up shop, and it became well known for Khmer food, as it still is today, but probably more so these days for the night market food stalls and, of course, the flower market, which at night is dazzling under lights. I recommend you check it out when you're here. Now, the street I want to recommend to you this week, apart from those, of course, is Street 79 in District 7. I wouldn't necessarily call it a destination street per se, like the two other streets I've just mentioned. But if you find yourself in the area or if you're looking for something different from usual in a different neighbourhood, then this street might be for you. Street 79 has a lot to choose from, so I'm not going to go into everything, especially as it's quite long. But there are quite a number of northern style places to eat here. So perhaps there's a large northern community that's relocated to this part of the district. perhaps there are a lot of workers from the north now residing here too. So if it's northern food you're after, try Phở Linh Giang An for breakfast at the far western end of the street in the direction of Lotte Mart, which is a couple of blocks away. They serve up amazing phở gà, and it's famous among the local community here, which of course is chicken noodle soup. And across the street or next door, depending on where you sit, because Linh Giang An occupies two sides of the street on the corner. Next door is a family-owned vendor that cooks up on the spot fresh bang wai, the doughy breadsticks that northerners dip into their pho, kind of like how you would dip bread into your soup on a cold winter's night. But these things are more like donuts in a way, but they're sticks. Man, they taste awesome. These ones in particular are very, very special, and you can get a little bag full for about 10,000 dong. So make sure you do that if you hit up Linh Giang An. So that's that one. Let me give you a lunch recommendation. Okay, I recommend Cơm Tấm 169. Now, Cơm Tấm is synonymous with Saigon, so it's regarded as a southern dish, and it's a worker's meal really that can be eaten for breakfast, lunch and dinner, which you certainly can at this place. They're open all day, but I recommend it for lunch. Typically, Cơm Tấm consists of a serving of steamed broken white rice and a pork chop. Now, it doesn't sound too inviting, does it? But the pork chop is marinated over time, then barbecued on the grill, then served up with a large heaping of rice, sometimes too much actually, and then you can drown it in nuoc cham, which is a dipping sauce made from nuoc mam, aka fish sauce. Now, Cơm Tấm 169 is one of the best I've had, and I'm not just saying that. And I'm not just saying that because I live in District 7. It's not that far from my house, but it's very good. Check it out for yourself to see what I'm talking about. And the final one for today is Bún chả Hanoi xưa. Xưa means old or ancient, and bún chả, well, bún refers to noodles, in this case white rice sticky noodles, and chả refers to the kind of barbecued or grilled pork rissoles. Generally speaking, it's, chả would be meat or fish and fashioned or shaped into sort of round discs or round, almost like balls really. I think that's the best way to describe them, and it typically gets served with a plate of herbs and a nuoc cham with pickled carrot and papaya. It's an awesome dish, very northern but ubiquitous down here in the south. You'll see it everywhere. Get into some whenever you can. So there you have it, Street 79 in District 7. Don't be fooled into thinking District 7 is just Koreatown and full of rich people. It's a big district and the population is overwhelmingly local and well worth checking out if you're a foodie. I'll leave addresses in the show notes so you can go and check them out for yourself. Okay, that's it for this episode. Thanks for joining me. Be sure to let me know your thoughts on the episode and the podcast in general. And don't forget to leave a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and now on YouTube. You can just comment, like, and share like you usually would on a video. It really helps a lot and costs nothing but a little of your time. Be sure to add the places I recommended in this episode to your list. And don't forget to check out Nam's content on social media. I'm going to go and ice my back. I heard it last week. I've been under a little bit of duress and it's stopping me from getting out and about. I really hope it heals soon so I can bring you more interesting stuff about the best city in Vietnam. So until the next episode, take care and stay safe. Look after your back and eat well. This has been Matt Cowan. Ciao for now.